Welcome to Breaking the Ice. We're Patel, Greene & Associates, and we're here to tell stories about our three favorite things: business, culture, and engineering. Let's get to it. Coming up.
We're going to team with PGA and we're going to win this. It was the first letter we put in, and we were very fortunate to be able to be shortlisted and then win. So
At times, I'm not sure how you all produce what you produce.
Marketing, a lot of marketing. Small but mighty is, how we try to sell it.
All right, well, welcome back to PGA's Breaking the Ice podcast. I am your host, Gordon Greene, and I am happy to have with us our guest, Megan Lerner with Garrett Engineering Group, to join us. Not our first non-PGAer, but we're excited to bring on these guests that don't work for me, so we can get some real, honest conversation. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I think we'll start by letting you introduce yourself a little bit, and I think a good part of that will be not only some of your background and what you do, but how our companies kind of came together and started working together, and even like you and I working on projects together, and then we'll get into some other fun topics as well. So take it away.
So I'm Megan Lerner with Garrett Engineering Group. I have been with Garrett for about 10 years now. We started our own firm, or I joined Irby, who had been by himself a couple years before he brought me on. And back then, you guys were just a small firm, and we were starting out and teamed together to win projects. I mostly joined Garrett Engineering to be able to work from home. Like, we are a full work from home company, and Irby and I kind of started that with the values based on just having a good work-life balance and being able to get time back, to place that importance on our family. So,
yeah, y'all been doing that way before COVID was a thing.
Way before COVID was a thing. Yeah,
so that phase y'all zero.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, let's go back in time a little bit. Like you said, Irby started Garrett Engineering Group probably a year or so before we started PGA, something like that. And by the time we started, he was still, just Irby, which was enough for what he's doing. His background's in traffic, and so that was perfect for us because we're roadway drainage people. So a lot of those early BDI projects, and I think we'll probably get into some of that. That was huge for us. I know that's been huge for y'all. And I think, he worked with us on our first District 1 win in sort of a QC role, and there's stories that go with that we might not get into, but District 2 was the first one where we had Irby on the team as the traffic person, right, doing all of it for us, and that started a really, really good relationship that continues to this day. And of course, y'all have built out a lot since then. Like you said, he brought you on, I think, first. And then I think maybe Carlos after that. Right. And then, so now you got a roadway team and a traffic team. And then y'all, of course, have built out your own teams quite a bit since then. And we've enjoyed seeing that and, being some small part of it. And of course, receiving some small part of it too as y'all continue to grow. But I think for you, and I don't know if this is the first project you won as a prime, it was the first one that we were a part of anyway. And of course, I'll never forget this project, but when you mentioned it the other day that was the first one we worked on, I had forgotten that part of the story, but then it clicked why we connected so well and continue to work well together, because that was a very challenging project. And we don't have to go back all the way into that project, but maybe that's like a little bit about you winning that project, because was that your first win as a PM?
Yeah. So I when Irby was approaching me to join Garrett Engineering, I wasn't a person who ever really considered myself hey, I want to own my own business and I want to, be a partner of a firm. I was working for a big firm and I was happy. But I was working a lot. I was, young and, at that time, single, traveling, kind of looking at success in a different way. And so when he approached me, he said, I want to bring you on this week. We can be partners. We can grow this. You can win roadway work. I can win traffic work. We'll be a team. And I started thinking about it. And at that time, I was having my first baby and, my priorities were shifting and I was judging success a lot differently. So wearing a suit and traveling, wasn't quite as appealing anymore. If I could be home with my son at the time, it was a big deal. So he brought me on, and I'll have to say I was a little nervous at first because I don't really know traffic. I was roadway. That was it. That's what I knew how to do. And so we would talk, and I would say, yeah, but what am I going to do when I start? What am I actually going to be doing during the day? And he's like, well, you're going to win work. And I'm like, okay. So that's what I did. I was fortunate enough to be able to spend some time working in-house over here at District 1. So I had developed a lot of relationships with the PMs over there. And that's kind of where we started. We looked at what projects were available, what we thought would be a good fit. And there just happened to be a good sidewalk, small project, we thought. And, you guys have been so gracious to bring him along on your team. It was just, there was just never a thought about it. It was like, hey, we're going to team with PGA and we're going to win this. And, it was the first letter we put in, and we were very fortunate to be able to be shortlisted and then win. So
very impressive. And thinking about it's bringing back some memories now. So I remember that I didn't go in that interview with you. Hiring did. And I can't remember why, probably schedule conflicts or something like that. So, and Hiring went in, and, did a good job, apparently.
Yeah.
And, you knocked it out of the park and you win, but I was going to be the EOR because
Right.
it was District 1, and that's the enemy a little bit better than Hiring. And I can still remember, it's funny how you remember some things, like you just never forget them. I remember the scope meeting back when you actually went over there for
Yeah.
in-person scope meeting. And Hiring got me up to speed. We're going to put this sidewalk down, US 41, and there's these permitted linear ponds. And you had come up with a concept, I think, to avoid a lot of those impacts. And I thought, okay, that's cool. Won't be bad. And in the scope meeting, they go, nope, we want this, and it's got to go here. And I go, oh, this just became a
Changes
drainage
things.
job.
Yeah.
Sweet. So that worked out for us. But it ended up being very challenging. The stakeholders were challenging. The contractor ended up being pretty challenging. And we've talked about this already on this podcast on previous episodes about, at least internally, you find yourself in the trenches with your team a lot, right? Getting a submittal out the door, getting ready for presentation. You get a lot of that in the trenches work with each other, and those bonds are formed, and it just makes for a really good cohesive team. But that can and does extend even outside of your own firm, like we did on that 41 project where, we were in the trenches figuring stuff out, venting when needed, and when everybody's on the same page, like we were, and we work similarly, hardworking and all that stuff. It really does a lot for relationships.
Yeah.
So always enjoyed working with you and really everyone at Garrett. Y'all are great.
Thank you. It's easy when the job is easy. When it's hard is when you really see what everybody's made of.
Exactly. Okay, so you've already hinted a little bit about this unique model that Garrett Engineering has, and literally from the get-go, y'all been operating that way. It's what enticed you to make the move. So tell us a little bit more, give us a little bit behind the scenes on this work-from-home model, and what that's looked like from day one to today and I don't even know, looking forward to this episode. Folks have asked, well, how many people do they have? And I'm like, I don't know. More than 3, I know that.
Yes.
But I'm actually curious. So, yeah, tell us a little bit more about how that's working for y'all and how that's changed over the last decade or so.
Yeah. So we're currently 10, which I think is very surprising to a lot of people when they hear that number, because they are surprised by the type of work and the amount of work that you can win with a 10-person firm.
Yep.
And
I
then,
still, at times, I'm not sure how y'all produce what you produce.
Me too. And with it being totally work from home, that can be challenging, right? And so I think over the years, we have faced whatever the challenges were to solve them. Very early on, Irby and I both knew that we wanted the flexibility. And, I think you mentioned on your previous podcast, you would go into work, you would go home at 5, you would go back to work and work till midnight, and then your wife was home, too many nights.
Right.
And so the whole concept of being able to work from home is, even if you are still working, being able to be present and there for your family. So I knew from the start, Irby knew from the start, and we just said, why can't we? Because nobody else has done it.
Right.
That's not a reason. So yeah, we have some things that we have to overcome. How are we going to file share? What does our computer system look like? You don't have a traditional server. Everything is, more on a workstation type situation versus, putting servers out there or, software updates in that way. So, we found ways, and well before Teams was ever a thing, there was another program that we used to use called TeamViewer. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I think I remember that, yeah.
It's a ways back, but a lot of screen sharing, a lot of collaboration in ways that didn't necessarily mean we were sitting across the table from each other, but we were collaborating in the same way. So today we have, not only are all of our employees work from home, but they're not actually all even stationed in the same city. So we have pretty much people working in every district that we do work in. So I have one of my team members in District 5. She's very integral to that district because she's able to be there in person. She's able to go out into the field and check things very efficiently, where I would be traveling, from Tampa to Daytona or wherever, We have another one of our team members in District 2 who provides that same service for us, and it allows us to be more efficient when we're spread out that way. We do get together once a quarter. So we do meet at a central location in person once a quarter for lunch. Nothing too serious, but, we get to have that interaction with each other and, connect on a face-to-face level. But just because we're spread out and we're work from home doesn't mean there's any less collaboration going on than, just being together in the office.
Awesome. So as you brought people on, did you ever face any challenges maintaining that? Have any issues with recruiting with that very unique model?
Yeah, so work from home model is not for everyone. I think it can be very enticing for people, and that has drawn us in a lot of employees. So on one hand, it has helped us gain or recruit employees, but on the other hand, we have met with people who have just flat out said, like, yeah, that's not for me. I don't want to work from home.
And you want them to be honest.
Yeah. And then there's other people who think they want to work from home, but when you actually get into it, it's just not a good fit for them. And so we can kind of tell that pretty early on if it's going to be, a good model. And it doesn't work for everyone, but we have a core group of people that have really been able to thrive, in that work environment.
Yeah. Do you think, because y'all are a little bit smaller and you probably have a real good read on each other in terms of like productivity, when someone comes in and they think they want to do it, what's the trigger where you go, this isn't working? Is it productivity? Do they say, I thought I would like this, but I don't? They probably don't say that, right? You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So how do you normally figure that out?
Yeah. So it's productivity, right? So when we're a small firm, right? We're 10 people. We've been very fortunate to win a good amount of work. And so you have to work at a more efficient pace. And our core group of people are great at that. It's no longer just about being at the office from 9 to 5. Well, I have all day to do this. It's like, hey, if I get this done, I have some time left over. So everybody's efficiency rises above. So the efficiency bar is set really high at Garrett Engineering. And so when someone comes on board, you can kind of tell, pretty quickly that, yeah, they're working all day long, or they might be saying they're working all day long, but their work doesn't show that they're working all day long. So that's kind of how we've been able to see it.
And I imagine at the size y'all are at, like that, you can't probably put up with that for too long, right? You got to deal with it.
Right.
Hopefully I haven't had to deal with that too many times.
Not too many times. There's been a couple. And, we've just tried to be really honest and say, like, we don't think it's the best environment for you. Like, nothing that you're a bad engineer or that you're not a good worker or a good person. We just think that you would benefit from being in an environment where you can get more hands-on, like, either training or guidance or supervision.
So you give them it's not you, it's me, pretty much.
Yeah.
It works for Costanza. That's a Seinfeld joke, Amanda. Okay. You mentioned being a mom. Anything else you wanted to share about what that has meant? Because from the beginning, that's a reason that you did it.
Right.
Anything else you want to share on that and what that's meant for you?
Just like, I've been fortunate enough to be able to be present for my children. I leave every day and pick them up from school because I think that's an important part of hearing about their day. When they're sick, they can be home. I don't have to, rely on grandma and that kind of stuff. So I've just been blessed to be able to be home with them, all three of them, which they're getting older now. And, maybe at some point that will change. But being there in the younger years was always real important to me.
Yeah. We just talked about you going to D3, so
yeah,
you'll miss a couple pickups anyway.
That's true. We have to be there for the client. And so
Sure.
I'm fortunate enough to have my parents close by so they can fill in the gaps when needed, but it's not too often.
Nothing can be perfect, but it does sound like an awesome setup and a good balance. So, all right, anything else you want to share on the unique Garrett Engineering work from home model, world class model?
I think a lot of people don't maybe understand it. I think when you get to a certain size, it might not work anymore.
Yeah.
There would be challenges for sure if we were much bigger than we are. And so that has really played into a lot of the decisions that Irby and I, have made in terms of growth for our company. We started out at the same time. We were growing one person a year and you were growing 20. And so, Irby and I would look at each other and we're like, gee, what do you think? Should we grow like that? Do you want to do that? No. Do you want to do that? No. Okay, good. We're still good with just, staying the same size. So it's been a choice, and maybe it has hindered some growth to be able to maintain this model, but keeping that model was important to us. Mm-hmm. And so that's the choice.
And I think we'll get into that a little bit later too, because you said something at the beginning of the podcast about seeing success differently.
Yeah.
And so I think that actually we won't get too far ahead of ourselves. But I think that's a perfect example of that. And we've talked on this podcast too before about like identity and knowing yourself as a firm, and as a culture. And I think that's really important because there's so many ways to be successful. Right. But I think outside of just mediocrity and poor performance, will prevent you from being successful. But, otherwise it's just really more about how you want to do it. And
right.
you can be successful in a bunch of different ways. Okay. So let's talk about, DBE and SBE programs. So, both DBEs, actually, I think we are not a DBE anymore. And certainly by the time this comes out, that'll be totally official. But you all have been a DBE, continue to be a DBE, but that doesn't mean what it used to mean necessarily. Right. So let's talk a little bit about that, being a small business, growing a firm, taking advantage of some of those programs, maybe what either the BDI SBE program and the DBE program, what that has meant for y'all, and I can kind of share some of the same, and then what we do from here.
Yeah. So from early on, we knew that having a DBE would be important, especially when Irby was just a one-person firm and he relied on a lot of sub work. When the certain portion of the project is set aside and required for DBE participation, there's an incentive, for some of the bigger firms to use the smaller firms or share the work. So definitely the early days, the DBE, I think, is what allowed him to kind of move away from being at a firm and start up. So it's always been an important program to us. We've always been very cognizant of maintaining the DBE requirements, not outgrowing the program, staying a certain size, being very cognizant of winning work on when we're winning work. And the DBE program is based on gross revenue. So you have to think about that in terms of not only what you're right. winning, but what you're giving
Passing
away.
Through, yeah.
So it's always been important to us. The BDI program, we have also been incredibly successful with. I think those programs by design have allowed us to compete with firms that are our size, which has been really important. When you look at PGA or Garrett, the depth of resources just, are not the same. So when you have projects set aside, it kind of allows us to compete on the same level of firms our size. So there's been changes to the program recently, maybe even more by the time this airs, because I think there's still a lot of uncertainty about, what that means. But, with the sunsetting of the program or the changes or, whatever that ends up being, Small businesses really rely on those types of policies. And when there's big policy changes like that, you have to find a way to pivot. So finding the way to pivot at this point is where we're at, kind of in that process, and finding out what that means for us. Relying on our relationships for sub work instead of the actual requirements,
Right.
so to speak.
Well, I know, ironically, we find ourselves in the same position, even though we're much different sizes. But also, similarly, I think we probably on some level always wanted to grow, and maybe in one day, maybe if we could grow out of the program. Early on, we had no idea what that timeline would be like, but we knew we wanted to grow, and so we thought, well, maybe we'll grow out of it one day. And the answer to that, to be ready for that, is to be able to win your own prime work. But by the time we even started thinking about that, like you all, we just decided we would rather prime work anyway, especially with the BDI program, because I just prefer being in control of the project. And so we were already, equipped to do that, lots of success doing that. So we were confident that we could win our own work. But in addition to that, we knew we had to be the kind of firm that other firms would want on their team, not because of the DBE, but because we're good at what we do. And then the DBE is just a bonus. And I know that's y'all approach it the same way. So I have no, doubt that you all will be just fine, especially with the BDI threshold going up. So you can stay in that. You can even grow a little bit, I would imagine, probably quite a bit, I would imagine, and stay certainly under the raised threshold. So I guess that's some silver lining to it. I think that's interesting that we did kind of take the same approach in a way, but it's also kind of back to that identity of I just want to be a sub to everyone, because some of these primes, maybe I don't want to work with them all the time. I'd rather have control of the project and do it the way that I want to do it. And so changes are coming. We've talked a little bit about what we've done to prepare for our DBE graduation, which we could see coming, as we got closer to it, and we can try to project out growth. We can go, okay, I think we have 1 year left or 2 years left. We better make sure not only, yes, we can win our own prime work. We checked that box a long time ago, but now are people going to want us on their team when we graduate and we don't give them DBE points? We better start putting them on our teams more now, so that there's some, you can play the game or whatever later. What's that look like for you all? Probably kind of the same, but a little bit different, because I don't chase as much work as us, because you don't have to.
Right. So I will say, early on, finding out how much work is the right amount of work is really difficult. We spent the first several years trying to say, do we go after and try to win another project? Do we hold back? Do we have enough staff? Do we want to grow? If we grow, then do we have to win more projects? And where does this hamster wheel, kind of take us? And so I don't know if we really know what this change in the BDI program is going to look like for us. I think right now it's just to try to continue to leverage our relationships with the people that we're working with, provide good work so they want to have us, on their team, like you said. And then I think we are going to have to market more. It's taking on new districts. It's, looking for new partnerships. I have always been really big on creating new partnerships. Pretty much any firm that reaches out to me, we at least meet and find out, hey, how can we benefit each other? What does that look like? So, maybe you're doing good in one district and I'm doing good in another, and how can we, pull our resources together? So I think a lot of it in the future is going to be that, creating new partnerships, bringing on new clients, marketing, a lot of marketing.
A lot of marketing. Yeah. It's funny, this conversation, it keeps coming back to that sort of identity thing and deciding what you want to be. And I imagine you have to have go, no-go meetings, and then there's a real chance there's like a no-go because you're not really looking to grow. Like that decision was always easy for us. We never had the meeting. It was always go because we wanted to grow. And there was a good bit of our history where we had plenty of success recruiting. We're kind of at a size where we could go after everything and we could never hire fast enough, you know. And then you get to the point, you get to a certain size where that's not necessarily the case, at least not with each and every group. You kind of have to look at it a little bit closer. And so we kind of have no-go meetings, but what's the answer usually? Go. So we're still kind of a go, but that's because that's us. We want to grow. We want to see how big we can grow and do it smartly and all that stuff that we want to grow. Early on, we would have some of those. I remember we had gut check meetings very, very long in PGA, sort of like, so you and Irby have the conversation of, is that what we want to do? And he says, yeah, no, I just want to stay like this. And you go, yeah, me too. And so you're on the same page. Boom. Now you can rock and roll. We'd have those conversations here, and it's like, okay, if we're going to go and do this thing, eventually we're going to graduate out of this and graduate out of that. Right. Is that what we want to do? And we were at a size where there were a couple people, which is why I asked the question. A couple people, yeah, I don't know, maybe not, but the majority was, heck, no, yes, man, let's go. Right. So again, outside of a couple outliers, and of course those people, work themselves out over time. Again, not because they're bad people or they don't think right. It's because they no longer fall in line with the vision of, the company. Right. And what our identity is becoming. And so now we're on the same page. Now we can rock and roll in our direction, just like y'all have done in your direction.
Yeah, and I think, looking at not only the projects in quantity, like the amount of projects, but also the type of project or the size. You look back, I look back over the last 10 years, and there's been some very integral wins and some really tough losses, right? So the one that you were like, hey, we're a firm of 3. You want to go after a $5 million district-wide? Yeah, let's do that. We do want to grow at this point, but who's going to take us seriously as a firm of 3 if we want a $5 million contract? And so in those days, it was showing up with a team, and saying, we have the depth of resources. Maybe we're Garrett at 3, but I can deliver your project or your program because of the depth of resources that I have. So our no-go meetings are a lot about our teaming partners, how we can leverage our relationships and show a depth of staff that we don't have directly in-house per se, but how we work so cohesively together because we've been working together for so long that a lot of our teaming partners are an extension, of our firm to kind of beef us up, small but mighty is, how we try to sell it.
Yeah. Well, and you're really good in the interview and a presentation. So it really didn't surprise me. And I probably had almost nothing to do with that interview either because it was District 7. But when I heard you won, of course I was very happy because I knew we were on the team and I knew what that meant for us. But I was like, yeah, of course you did.
I was surprised.
Yeah. Well, you want to feel that way if it's you. But outside looking in, it's like, well, of course you did.
Every single one I want to win. I mean, we've had these discussions. I'm very competitive. I always, want to go to the highest level of excellence for our clients. So winning has always been a big deal.
But you back it up with the effort. Everybody wants to win, but not everybody backs it up with the let's roll up the sleeves and figure this out and go knock it out of the park. I was thinking too on, I guess last point on DBE, SBE stuff. Allowing the non-BDI firms back in, I'm thinking if I'm you, that should hopefully help because, one, as other BDI firms graduate, if it was a purely BDI program like it was when it started, you kind of start to run out of reliable options for subs. But more on the teaming aspect, if you can bring in, a non-BDI firm like PGA, now you're able to get on there. So you can play that reciprocation game, even if you're not chasing all these non-BDI jobs because y'all are small and you can or whatever. You can keep pounding away at the BDI, which there have been some really good BDI firms that have started somewhat recently. I feel like there for a while, there were some firms that graduated when we graduated that were really good, continue to be really good firms. But it left I don't know how it felt, still in the program, but again, sort of outside looking in, I'm like, there are a few firms still there. Y'all certainly one of them. It's like varsity and JV. Like I hope y'all kind of cleaned up there for a while, so that made me very happy. But a few have come back in, so competition's getting a little tougher again. You'll be fine. But anyway, having that non-BDI, how do you perceive that? Does that really affect you? I mean, you're subbing stuff out anyway, so what do you care? Does it actually help you?
It did help me. I kind of view it as the DBE program in reverse, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I think a lot of the bigger firms were complaining, like, why are you setting aside this portion of the work program?
Because they were getting bigger too. The projects were getting bigger.
Their projects are getting bigger. We don't think it's fair. You mentioned that a lot of good subs were graduating the program, and so that did make teaming a little bit tough. I was always for opening up a small percentage of it, but keeping the prime having to be certified as a BDI, because like I mentioned before, when you're competing with other firms, your size and your depth of resources does make a big difference. You were putting together a marketing presentation with your entire marketing department. It's going to have a level of expertise that say we're probably not going to be able to provide because I'm going to be doing the PowerPoint, and while I'm able to, it's not going to be as savvy, right? So I think leveling the playing field by keeping the primes as BDI was important, but adding the BDI percentage was also important. We were having a hard time finding surveyors because there wasn't very many surveyors who were still BDI, and the ones that were had too much work. So it was hard for them to deliver a project on schedule. I think that was the biggest benefit to what we sub out.
I could see that.
And I think, that part of the program, opening up that part of the program did benefit us.
Yeah, probably geotechs too, right? Yeah,
geotechs. There wasn't very many. So some of your specialized firms that can grow quickly, they just graduated fast.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've kind of hit on this a little bit. I think the last thing we'll touch on is sort of differing philosophies. So we've talked about y'all really prioritizing this work from home atmosphere, the culture that you all have, the system that you've built to be like highly, highly productive with a small group, and then just building out your teams with no real like long-term plans to be this big firm. It's just not important. So that's how y'all see success, and you're maximizing that view of success, in my opinion. It's really, really impressive. As opposed to PG over here, like let's hire everybody we can and see how big we can grow, and that's how we see. At least that's part of how we see success. Right. And so we chase that down. We put all our effort into that, and try to look back and go, okay, we achieved that, and y'all gonna do the same thing. You're over there. I mean, like we talked about, we started about the same time, and we're whatever we are, 160 something, and y'all are 10. But we can both look back after 15 years for y'all. We're almost at 15, and go, we did it. We did exactly what we wanted to do, just how we wanted to do it. So very, very impressive. Anything else on that? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think certainly for me, I had to kind of retrain myself to think about what success looked like, because I think, when you're coming out of college, you're looking to go to a fancy job, and you want to dress up. And if you're traveling, or you feel like you're really important, or you're attending these big meetings, or you're having a lot of responsibility, then that's what success means. And so for me now, I have seen that you can be just as successful and just as profitable by working, at home. I have a space dedicated, I think that's an important part of working from home, is you can't just be sitting at the dining room table. It doesn't work well that way. But, having a dedicated space, having a small firm where everybody does multiple things. So, if someone says to me like, oh, who can I talk about for accounting? Yeah, I can help you with that. Who can I talk about for marketing? Yeah, I can help you with that. Who can I talk about for this engineering problem? Like, yeah, I can help you with that. And that's how everyone, on our team is. So, working from home may seem like a lot of distance between us, but we actually do work, very well and very collaboratively. And as a result, each one of my team members, can see that same success.
That's awesome. All right. I think that's all we had. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about while we were here today?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking with me about these things. It's always, every single one of these we've done, it's at least a little bit back down memory lane, which is always a lot of fun. So always been great working with you. Look forward to many, many more years ahead working together, and wish you guys all the luck.
Thank you. You as well.
All right. Thanks, Megan. All right. That'll do it for us here on PGA's Breaking the Ice podcast. Normally we end with a Go PGA. Do you feel like doing a Go PGA?
I don't know if I know the Go PGA.
We just say Go PGA.
Okay, sure.
There's no secret to it. All right. So we just end it with the Go PGA. So on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Go PGA.